She's an 11-foot alien in heat, and I'm the last human alive on this planet. She's an 11-foot alien in heat, and I'm the last human alive on this planet. Awakening to fire, Captain. Dante Reeves awoke to the sensation of liquid fire coursing through his veins. His last coherent memory was the bridge of the UES Defiant, buckling under plasma fire, the screams of his crew mixing with the shriek of tearing metal as Earth's final battleship died. Around him, the Kethmern had won their war of extinction, and humanity was no more. Or so he had thought. The chamber around him pulsed with bioluminescent warmth, walls that seemed to breathe and floors that yielded slightly under his weight. Everything was organic, alive in ways that human technology had never achieved. Dante tried to sit up and immediately regretted it as his ribs protested with sharp pain. Peace, small flame, a voice said from the shadows, rich and melodious like distant thunder. Your injuries are still healing. Dante's hand instinctively reached for his sidearm, only to find it missing. The voice chuckled, a sound that seemed to vibrate through the living walls themselves. I am no threat to you, Dante Reeves of the Terran fleet. She stepped into the light, and Dante's breath caught in his throat. She was magnificent and terrifying in equal measure, easily 11 feet tall, with skin that shifted between deep crimson and burnished gold like living flame. Her features were unmistakably feminine, but refined to an impossible degree, with high cheekbones, full lips, and eyes that glowed like molten amber. Her hair cascaded down her shoulders in waves that seemed to move with their own inner fire. I am Zareth of the HFY, she said, her accent carrying musical undertones that made something deep in Dante's chest resonate. You have been unconscious for 7 cycles. Your escape pod was badly damaged when it crashed on Pirithvar. Pirithvar? Dante struggled to remember his stellar cartography. That's supposed to be a dead world, uninhabitable. Zareth's lips curved in what might have been amusement. Uninhabitable to most, perhaps. But my people have made it home for generations. We thrive where others cannot. Dante took in her imposing presence, noting the way heat seemed to shimmer around her like a personal aura. Her clothing was minimal bands of some metallic fabric that seemed to channel and focus the warmth she radiated. Everything about her spoke of barely contained power. Your people? He asked, though something in her expression already suggested a painful answer. The HFY were once mighty, Zareth said, moving to a crystalline window that looked out over a landscape of volcanic vents and rivers of lava, warriors who bonded with the fire itself. But we were too few, and the galaxy too cruel. She paused, her shoulders tensing. I may be the last of my kind on this world. Dante felt an unexpected pang of sympathy. I understand that feeling. Earth's evacuation fleets never made it out of the system. As far as I know, I'm the last human alive. Zareth turned back to him, and Dante saw something in her glowing eyes that made his pulse quicken. Not just sympathy, but recognition, as if she saw something in him that resonated with her own pain. Perhaps, she said softly, we need not be alone in our endings. Before Dante could ask what she meant, a tremor ran through the chamber. Zareth's entire body went rigid, her skin flaring brighter as heat waves began to distort the air around her. What's happening? Dante demanded, instinctively moving toward her despite the dangerous levels of thermal energy she was radiating. The searing, she whispered, her voice tight with what sounded like pain. It comes upon us rarely, perhaps once in a generation. But when it does, she looked at him with desperate intensity. Dante, I need you to understand. The searing is not just physical need. It is a bonding imperative written into our very souls. Without a mate, without connection, it will burn me from within. Dante felt sweat beating on his skin as the temperature in the chamber continued to rise. How long do you have? Hours, perhaps less. Zareth backed away from him, clearly struggling to maintain control. But the bonding is not something to enter lightly. The HFY are mate for life, mind to mind, soul to soul, and there is danger for both of us. What kind of danger? The bond changes those who share it. You would no longer be entirely human, and I would no longer be entirely HFY. We would become something new, something that has never existed before. Her eyes were pleading now. I will not force this choice upon you, Dante Reeves, but I needed you to know. Before he could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the complex. Zareth's expression shifted from desperation to deadly focus in an instant. "The Void Hunters," she snarled. "They have found us." Through the crystalline window, Dante could see shapes moving across the volcanic landscape, creatures that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it, leaving dark wounds in reality itself. "Who are they?" he asked, accepting the plasma rifle. Zareth handed him from a hidden compartment. "Ancient enemies of my people. They seek to end the VHA, our I bloodline, completely." She looked at him with fierce intensity. "They will not hesitate to kill you as well, simply for being in my presence." Dante checked his weapon's charge and felt a familiar calm settle over him. Battle, he understood. How many? Too many. Zareth was moving toward what looked like an armory, her movements becoming more urgent as the heat continued to build around her. "Dante, the searing will not wait for a convenient moment. If we are to survive this, if we are to have any chance at all," she left the words hanging, but Dante understood. They could face the Void Hunters as individuals and likely die, or they could take the ultimate risk and face them as something unprecedented. "What do I need to do?" he asked. Zareth's eyes blazed with hope and terror in equal measure. "Trust me, Dante Reeves. Trust us." The fire within the Void Hunters moved across the volcanic landscape like living shadows, their forms seeming to devour the very light around them. Through the crystalline windows of Zareth's sanctuary, Dante counted at least 20 of the creatures, their movements unnaturally fluid as they approached the hidden complex. "They feed on life energy," Zareth explained. Her voice strained as waves of heat continued to pour off her body. The searing was intensifying, and Dante could see the effort it took for her to maintain focus. "That is why they appear as voids. They consume the light itself." Dante adjusted his grip on the plasma rifle, his military training automatically cataloging defensive positions and escape routes. But even as his tactical mind worked, he was acutely aware of the impossible situation they faced. The complex was well defended, but not against 20 Void Hunters, and Zareth was clearly in distress, her condition worsening by the minute. "How long until they breach the outer defenses?" he asked. "Perhaps 30 minutes, she replied. Pressing her palm against the living wall, the organic material responded to her touch, showing them tactical displays of the approaching enemies. "But Dante, the searing will not wait. I can feel it building toward a critical point. What happens if we don't bond?" Zareth met his eyes, and he saw the truth there before she spoke. "The fire will consume me from within. I will become a living inferno that destroys everything in its path, including you, before finally burning out." Dante felt a chill despite the rising temperature. "And if we do bond, then we face the unknown together." She moved closer to him, and he could feel the heat radiating from her skin. Like standing near a forge, the VHARI have never bonded. With a human, our physiologies are so different that the process could kill us both. Or it could save us both, Dante countered, surprised by his own conviction. "Zareth, in the past hour, I've learned that I'm not alone in the universe, that there are others fighting the same battles I've been fighting. If there's a chance, even a small one, that we can survive this together, then I say we take it." Zareth's expression shifted from desperation to something that might have been wonder. "You would risk everything for someone you barely know." "I would risk everything for someone who saved my life, who's facing the same loss I am, and who's offering me something I thought I'd never have again, a connection to another living being." Dante set down his weapon and stepped closer to her, ignoring the searing heat. "Besides, what's the alternative? We die alone." For a moment, Zareth's composure cracked, and he saw the fear and loneliness she'd been carrying. "The bonding process is intense. Our minds will merge completely. Our bodies will transform to accommodate each other's needs. If we survive it, we will be changed forever." "Changed how? I do not know. No VHARI has ever attempted to bond with a species so different from our own." She reached out tentatively, her hand stopping just short of touching his face. "Your thoughts, your memories, your very essence will become part of me, and mine of you." The building shook as something struck the outer barriers. Through their shared display, Dante could see the Void Hunters testing the defenses. their dark forms pressing against the energy shields like parasites seeking entry. "Time's running out," he said. "What do we need to do?" Zareth's eyes blazed brighter as she made her decision. "The bonding requires complete trust, complete surrender to each other. We must join not just physically, but mentally and spiritually as well." She began moving toward what looked like an altar in the center of the chamber, her movements becoming more urgent as the heat around her intensified. The air itself was beginning to shimmer with thermal distortion. "Dante," she said, turning to face him, "once we begin, there is no stopping. The process will take perhaps 20 minutes, during which we will be completely vulnerable." 20 minutes. Dante glanced at the tactical display. The Void Hunters would breach the outer defenses long before then. "That's cutting it very close." "There's another way," Zareth said hesitantly. "An emergency bonding used only in the most desperate circumstances. It takes mere minutes, but the risk of death or madness increases dramatically." "How dramatically?" 7 out of 10 attempts end in the death of one or both partners. Dante considered their options: a conventional bonding with certain death waiting outside, or an emergency bonding with a 30% chance of survival. The tactical calculation was simple, even if the emotional weight was staggering. The emergency bonding, he decided. "How do we do it?" Zareth's skin flared even brighter, and Dante realized that the decision itself was somehow triggering the final stages of her condition. "We must join completely and immediately, mind, body, and soul united in an instant rather than gradually. The shock to our systems will be enormous." Another impact shook the complex, this one strong enough to crack one of the crystalline windows. The Void Hunters were adapting their tactics, focusing their attacks on the weakest points of the barrier. "Now or never," Dante said, moving to stand before the altar. "I'm ready." Zareth approached him, and he could see that her control was finally slipping. Heat waves distorted the air around her, and her skin had taken on the appearance of living flame. When she reached out to touch him, he felt the searing heat but forced himself not to pull away. "Dante," she whispered, her voice thick with the effort of maintaining coherence, "whatever happens, know that you have given me the greatest gift, the chance to not die alone." "We're not dying," he said firmly, taking her burning hand in his. "We're being reborn." As their skin made contact, the world exploded into sensation. Dante felt Zareth's mind rushing into his own like a tide of liquid fire, bringing with it centuries of memories, emotions, and experiences that no human had ever imagined. Her joy, her pain, her warrior's pride, and her terrible loneliness crashed over him in waves. But instead of being overwhelmed, he found himself responding in kind. His own memories, his own experiences, flowed into her consciousness. The blue skies of Earth, the weight of command, the crushing responsibility of being the last of his kind, all of it shared in an instant of perfect communion. And through it all, he felt their bodies changing, adapting, becoming something that was neither fully human nor fully VHERE, but entirely new. The last thing he was aware of before the transformation consumed him was the sound of the outer barriers finally giving way. Forged in phlegma, consciousness returned to Dante like emerging from the heart of a star. He was aware of his body, but it felt different, stronger, more resilient, coursing with energy that seemed to flow from some inexhaustible source. More than that, he was aware of another presence in his mind, a warm, fierce consciousness that felt as familiar as his own thoughts. "Zareth," he called out mentally, amazed at how natural the telepathic connection felt. "I am here," came her reply, filled with wonder and relief. "Dante, the bonding, it worked. We are alive." He opened his eyes to find himself lying on the altar, with Zareth beside him. But she looked different now, still tall and magnificent, but her skin had taken on a softer glow, more golden than the fierce red it had been before. Her eyes, when they met his, were still amber, but now held flecks of the blue that had been his own eye color, and he could feel the changes in himself as well. His human physiology had been enhanced, adapted to withstand the thermal energies that were now part of his very being. When he sat up, he moved with a fluid grace that had never been natural to him before. "The Void Hunters," Zareth's mental voice carried urgent concern. Dante's enhanced senses immediately detected the breach in the outer barriers. Through their shared consciousness, he could perceive the creatures as they truly were, not just shadows, but parasites that fed on the life force of other beings, leaving only emptiness behind. How many made it through? He asked aloud, though he could have communicated mentally. 6. Zareth replied, rising beside him with deadly grace. The barriers held longer than expected. But these 6 are the strongest of their pack. Dante looked around for weapons and found something unexpected. He didn't need them. The bonding had given him access to abilities that no human had ever possessed. Energy coursed through his hands, not the searing heat that had nearly consumed Zareth, but something more controlled, more focused, fire and steel, he thought, testing the power. Your flame and my discipline. Something like that, Zareth agreed, and he felt her amusement through their bond. Come, let us see what we have become. They moved together toward the chamber's entrance, and Dante was amazed at how naturally they coordinated. It was as if they had been fighting side by side for years instead of minutes. When the first Void Hunter appeared in the doorway, they reacted as one. Dante's enhanced reflexes sent him diving to the left while Zareth went right. Their movements perfectly synchronized without the need for verbal communication. The creatures attack, a tendril of pure darkness that would have drained the life from either of them individually, passed harmlessly between them, but their counterattack was anything but harmless. The energy that flowed from Dante's hands was unlike anything he had ever wielded, not plasma or projectiles, but pure force that seemed to disrupt the very essence of the Void Hunter. The creature shrieked as the attack struck it, its form wavering and becoming less solid. Zareth followed up with her own assault, streams of controlled flame that didn't burn so much as purify. Where her fire touched the Void Hunter, its darkness began to dissolve, revealing something almost pitiable underneath a creature that had once been something else entirely. Before being corrupted by its parasitic nature, they were V'Achiari once. Zareth realized, her mental voice filled with horror and understanding. Long ago, before they became what they are now. Can they be saved? Dante asked, even as he and Zareth continued their deadly dance around the remaining Void Hunters. I do not know, but perhaps. She paused in her attack, studying the creatures with new eyes. Yes, I can see it now. There's still something of their original selves buried deep within the darkness. The largest of the Void Hunters, clearly the pack leader, spoke in a voice like grinding stone. Zareth the Fire Bearer, you have chosen poorly in your final bonding. This human will only weaken you. Will he? Zareth asked, and Dante felt her fierce joy through their connection. Let us find out. What happened next was unlike anything Dante had ever experienced in combat. He and Zareth didn't just fight together, they became a single weapon with 2 bodies. Where she was strength, he was precision. Where he was strategy, she was raw power. Their movements flowed together like a choreographed dance, each supporting the other in ways that created capabilities neither could have achieved alone. The Void Hunters, for all their power and hunger, couldn't adapt to fighting an opponent that was both individual and unified. They struck at what they thought were weaknesses, only to find strengths. They tried to divide and conquer, only to discover that their enemies were already divided and yet somehow more unified because of it. But the real surprise came when Dante and Zareth, moving in perfect synchronization, reached out together toward the pack leader. Instead of attacking with destructive force, they channeled something else, the purifying energy of their bond itself. The Void Hunter screamed as the energy washed over it, but the scream changed pitch as something unprecedented happened. The darkness that had consumed its original form began to burn away, not destroying, but revealing. Dante watched in amazement as the creature's true form emerged, a V'Achiari warrior, scarred and changed by centuries of corruption, but still recognizably one of Zareth's people. Kethryn, Zareth whispered, her voice filled with disbelief. But you died in the Sundering Wars 500 cycles ago. The former Void Hunter looked at his hands in wonder, as if seeing them clearly for the first time in centuries. Zareth, how is this possible? I remember darkness, hunger, the need to feed. He looked up at her with eyes that were now clear of the shadow that had consumed them. What have I become? What you were always meant to be, she replied. tears streaming down her face. My brother. Through their bond, Dante felt the weight of Zareth's emotions, grief and joy and hope all tangled together. This was her brother, thought dead for centuries, now restored by the power of their unprecedented union. The other void hunters were backing away, fear evident in their movements for the first time, without their leader, without the certainty that they were the ultimate predators. They were uncertain how to proceed. Go. Catherine called to them, his voice carrying new authority. Tell the others what you have seen here. Tell them that the hunger need not be eternal, that there is another way. As the remaining void hunters fled into the volcanic landscape, Dante and Zareth stood together, their bond humming with power and possibility. They had not just survived their first trial as a bonded pair, they had discovered something that could change the fate of entire species. This is only the beginning, Zareth said through their mental link. I know, Dante replied, feeling the truth of it in his bones. But whatever comes next, we face it together. Brothers in Fereth reunion between Zareth and her brother Catherine was unlike anything Dante had ever witnessed. Through their bond, he felt the waves of emotion that crashed over his mate. Centuries of grief and guilt suddenly transformed into joy and hope. But underneath it all was a growing awareness of what their success meant for the galaxy at large. The others will come, Catherine said, his newly restored features grave with concern. When the survivors report what happened here, the void speakers will not ignore it. They have spent too long building their empire of hunger to allow hope to take root. Dante was still adjusting to his enhanced senses, but even he could detect the truth in the former void hunter's words. Through the living walls of the complex, he perceived movement in the distance, more shadows gathering at the edge of the volcanic fields. How many void speakers are there? He asked, checking the charge on his plasma rifle out of habit, though he now knew he possessed weapons far more powerful than any human technology. 7. Zareth replied, her mental voice tight with ancient memory. They were the first to embrace the hunger, the first to reject the bonds that made us whole. They rule over thousands of lesser void hunters, beings like Catherine who were corrupted against their will. Thousands. Dante thought, the tactical implications staggering. Even with their enhanced abilities, he and Zareth couldn't hope to face such numbers, unless we can do for them what we did for Catherine. Zareth completed his thought, their mental connection allowing for perfect communication. But the energy required to purify so many, it would kill us both, Catherine said. Having caught the gist of their silent conversation, the void speakers know this. They will send wave after wave of corrupted ones, forcing you to exhaust yourselves in acts of mercy. Dante felt a familiar calm settle over him, the same clarity that had always come in the most impossible tactical situations. Then we don't fight them here. We take the battle to the enemy. Both Vihayari looked at him with surprise. Through his bond with Zareth, he could feel her mental processes working through his suggestion, her warrior's instincts evaluating the possibilities. You mean to strike at the void speakers directly, she said slowly. But their stronghold is on the dead moon of Kefir, surrounded by their entire fleet. It would be suicide, would it? Dante moved to the chamber's tactical display, his enhanced mind already working through the logistics. Look at what we've accomplished together. A human NAVHARI, bonded in a way that's never been attempted before. We've created something that can purify the corruption that's plagued your people for centuries. Catherine stepped forward, understanding dawning in his restored eyes. The prophecies, he whispered. The old text spoke of the Firebringer and the Star Walker, to who would come together to heal the wounds of the galaxy. Prophecies? Dante raised an eyebrow. I thought you said the Vihayari were a warrior race. We are, Zareth replied, but we are also keepers of ancient knowledge. The texts speak of a time when the hunger would consume the light, and only the union of fire and steel could restore balance. She looked at him with growing excitement. Dante, your people called you the Steel Wolves, did they not? The last defenders of Earth. He nodded, remembering the nickname his unit had earned during the final battles, the Terran Steel Wolves. Yes, but you can't seriously believe. I can feel it through our bond, Zareth interrupted mentally. The power we've unlocked together, It's not just about purifying individual void hunters. We've created something that resonates at a frequency that disrupts their very existence. Kethrin was pacing now, his movements becoming more animated as the implications struck him. If the prophecies are true, then you two represent more than just hope for the HFY. You could be the key to freeing all the species that have been consumed by the Void Speaker's hunger. That's a lot of responsibility for a failed starship captain and the last warrior of a dying race, Dante said, though he could feel through their bond that Zareth was already committed to the path ahead. Not failed, she corrected him gently. Chosen, everything that led you to this moment, the war, the crash, even the destruction of your ship, it was all necessary to bring us together. Before Dante could respond, alarms began sounding throughout the complex. The tactical display showed dozens of new contacts approaching from multiple directions. The Void Speakers had arrived in force. They're not taking any chances, Kethrin observed grimly. 3 Void Speakers and perhaps 200 corrupted ones. They mean to end this before word of what happened here can spread. Dante felt Zareth's battle fury rising through their bond, her warrior instincts responding to the threat. But underneath the fury was something else, a deep, abiding love for her brother and determination to free him and others like him from the curse that had consumed them. The ship, she said suddenly, her thoughts turning to a vessel hidden deep within the volcanic complex. The Forge of Stars, it's been dormant for centuries, but with our combined power, we could reach Kefir. Dante completed the thought. Strike at the heart of their power before they can fully mobilize. You're talking about taking on the entire Void Speaker fleet with a single ship, Kethrin protested. Even with your newfound abilities, the odds are impossible. The odds have been impossible since the day I crashed on this world, Dante replied, checking his equipment one final time. But here's what the Void Speakers don't understand: humans excel at doing the impossible. Through their bond, he felt Zareth's fierce agreement. Together, they moved toward the hidden docking bay where the ancient HFY vessel waited. As they walked, Dante was amazed at how naturally their movements synchronized, how their separate tactical knowledge combined to create strategies that neither could have conceived alone. The Forge of Stars was designed to be crewed by a bonded pair, Zareth explained as they approached the sleeping ship. 2 minds working as one, 2 sets of abilities perfectly complementing each other. It has been waiting for us, Dante. The vessel was beautiful in its alien design, sleek and organic like everything else the HFY created, but with lines that spoke of incredible speed and power. As they approached, Dante could feel it responding to their presence, its dormant systems beginning to awaken. The Void Speakers will expect us to run or hide, he said as they boarded the ship. They won't expect us to come straight at them. Sometimes the best defense is a good offense. Zareth agreed, her mental voice carrying anticipation and deadly intent. As the Forge of Stars powered up around them, its systems interfacing directly with their bonded consciousness, Dante felt a moment of perfect clarity. This was what he had been meant for, not to die alone in the wreckage of humanity's last stand, but to be part of something greater, to help forge a new future from the ashes of the old. The ship lifted off from the volcanic surface, its destination clear, the dead moon of Kefir, where the Void Speakers waited in their stronghold of shadow and hunger. The Fire Eternalthi Forge of Stars cut through space like a blade through silk, its bioorganic hull shimmering with the combined power of its bonded pilots. Dante marveled at how the ship responded to their joined consciousness, not just following commands, but anticipating needs, adapting to their fighting style in real time. Through the living metal of the controls, he could feel Zareth's presence as clearly as his own thoughts. Kefir approaches, she communicated, her mental voice tinged with grim determination. The dead moon hung before them like a wound in space, its surface scarred by centuries of Void Speaker habitation. Dark citadels rose from crater floors, and the orbital space around it swarmed with shadow ships that seemed to devour light itself. Sensors are picking up massive energy signatures, Dante reported, though the information flowed through their bond as fast as he could speak it. 7 major concentrations, the Void Speakers themselves, and thousands of lesser signatures, Zareth added, all the corrupted ones they've gathered over the centuries. They're preparing for war. Through the ship's enhanced sensors, Dante could see the full scope of what they faced. The Void Speaker fleet numbered in the hundreds, each vessel crewed by beings who had once been warriors, scholars, artists, and dreamers of a dozen different species, all of them consumed by the same hunger that had taken Catherine, all of them waiting to be freed or destroyed. There, Zareth's attention focused on the largest of the dark citadels, the Heart of Emptiness. The first Void Speaker, Morthgan, makes his lair there. If we can reach him, the others will lose their anchor. Dante completed her thought, cut off the head of the snake, but even as they approached, the Void Speaker fleet was moving to intercept them. Ships that looked like wounds in reality itself launched themselves from the moon's surface, their weapons charging with energies that seemed to drink in the starlight around them. Incoming, Dante called out, though his enhanced reflexes were already responding. The Forge of Stars twisted through space with impossible grace, avoiding the first wave of attacks by margins measured in millimeters.